I remember vividly, I was working, for the PGA Tour when Audrey came down with sepsis, and I don't think any of us, I certainly was not aware of what sepsis was. I had no idea how serious it was. Then all of a sudden, Mark starts coming out talking about possibly having to retire because Audrey might not be here to take care of their kids. And all of a sudden, it was such it was just this moment of realizing, like, oh my gosh, okay, we need to learn about sepsis, and we also need to take care of and support the Leishman family in any way that we can.
Going back to when I was discharged and the nurse was telling me everything that I needed to go home with and how expensive everything would be, that was my first clue on how the financial impact of having sepsis is. And then the more I learned about it and the death toll and how much survivors and their families can struggle after discharge, I knew that the need was there, and from what I had seen and researched, there wasn't anyone out there providing financial support. And thankfully that year, Mark was selected to be on the President's Cup team, and we were given charity money, and that's how we started the Begin Again Foundation. And I could never have imagined it growing the way it has, but here we are 6 years later, and I'm thankful every day.
Well, my experience with sepsis started last year. I just wasn't feeling myself for maybe 2 days. I wasn't really sure what was going on. I just didn't feel right. Eventually, just getting really bad stomach cramps. I was shaking, like shivering. I checked my temperature, it was 102. At that point, I couldn't keep anything down, not water or anything, and realized something was really wrong. I needed to go to the hospital. Thankfully, they got me back as soon as I checked in, and I was just so emotional. I didn't know what was going on. I just felt like I was dying, and I saw the teleprompter that actually said, signs of sepsis, and I told her I said, I feel like I'm going to die. And that was pretty much the last thing I remember for several weeks, actually.
Daniel had been diagnosed with pneumonia. This was a year ago, February. He had been diagnosed with pneumonia, and it appeared that he was beginning to turn the corner, and his parents had to go to New York City to a fundraiser there. But things took a turn for the worse, and he had called me. It was a Sunday. He had called me, and I had just gotten back from church, and bless his heart, he just said, "Could you please bring me a smoothie? I feel really awful." And I said, "Sure, of course." So I got him his smoothie, and I walked through the door, and I have never in my life seen anybody so sick. He was coughing, he was in pain. He said, "I've never been in this much pain ever." He was coughing, probably because of the pneumonia. His breathing was very labored, but you could hear him trying to get his breath. And I looked at him and I said, "We are going to the hospital." And of course, as a young man, he said, "Well, should I take a shower?" And I said, "No, we're just gonna go to the hospital." So I took him to Princess Anne, and within, I would say 5 or 10 minutes after him getting, the triage and all that, he was taken back immediately. While he was in there, obviously he was on oxygen. They had a really hard time trying to find an antibiotic that would work for him. Both for the sepsis and the pneumonia had gotten so bad that we saw the x-rays and you really couldn't see any airways at all. He was so sick. I was told that, I don't remember whether it was a nurse or somebody said, "You do realize that this sepsis could have killed him. You've pretty much saved his life." But I remember sitting with him one day, and I was sitting on the side of the bed, and I know I was in tears, and he said, called me Gaga, you saved my life, Gaga. You saved my life.
It's been a little over a year since I left the hospital. I left October 14th of 2020, so I was there for 74 days. And it's just day by day, really. At first, learning how to walk again, learning how to do things on my own again, I had a lot of stomach complications, so dealing with that, again, amputations. I lost most of my fingers on my right hand, part of my hand on my left hand, and multiple toes on both my feet. So my balance is still a little off. I now have a heart condition from sepsis, so I'm on medication daily for that, and just the overall general fatigue, a lot of nightmares, a lot of uneasy sleep still. Yeah, just living day by day. Hair loss, I experienced a lot of hair loss, which was a lot of self-esteem going along with the amputations and everything else. My appetite hasn't really been the same since, I guess. Maybe that has a lot to do with the diverticulitis, which caused my sepsis.
I have to tell you, I owe it to Audrey Leishman and to Begin Again Foundation, because all I can see are those blue posters, with these are the symptoms of sepsis. And when I saw him, I could see it. I didn't say anything to him, but I said, I guess I just reacted, and I said, this is what this must look like, but I wasn't sure. So what I would say to anybody is, if it appears that you can't overreact, you can't be too unsure, you can't be too sure, but you can say, well, it couldn't be him, he wouldn't have had sepsis or whatever. But if you do that, a life could be lost.
Every day in the hospital was trying to get better, and I tried not to think about, oh my gosh, these bills are stacking up, like what am I going to do, how am I going to work? I didn't really understand still the severity of what I went through. I think until actually I left the hospital, and it was, here you are, you're on your own now, but the leash line helped me actually pay my rent and help make sure I had a roof over my head when I got home. There's not a lot of organizations out there like this, so it's very special and very, very different. Sepsis can happen to anyone. It's not, just my story. It's a lot of people's stories, and I don't think a lot of people know about organizations like this. And when you're in the hospital, they really don't speak much to you about sepsis, so you're kind of focusing on everything else going on, but when you go home, sepsis is still a part of your life, even though the diagnosis, is there, you were treated. But post-sepsis is, very, very real. And I think donations help people like me financially, get the tools and everything they need to, start to get their life back together.
When I hear stories like Tara's and stories like Linda's, knowing that we can make that big of an impact, and that the worst thing that happened to me has somehow over the years become one of the best things that has ever happened to me. To be able to help people at their worst and also to save lives, it's more than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, the thing that pleases me most about it is that Tara and Linda's stories, they're both completely different. One we helped after she got ill, and then Linda, she was able to prevent something that may have gone, downhill really quickly. Well, she did prevent that, and it's because of the awareness we got out there with the symptoms, and like she talks about the blue card of the symptoms. It's pretty cool to hear that.
This is so much bigger than me and Mark. This is about the people that we help, and I am so proud that we can tell you exactly where your money goes. I know that they work hard for it, and there are so many amazing and worthy charities. And so for donors to believe in what we do and believe in our mission, it means more than I could ever say. And all I can do is assure them that we will work our hardest to make sure that the money directly impacts people who are going through significant life crisis.
You have no idea how grateful we are for what all you guys do. Without you, we don't have the means to help as many families as what we do. So, from the bottom of our heart, thank you. I know both me and Audrey really appreciate it, and all the families that we help really appreciate it as well. So, like I say, without you guys, we can't do it. But it's not just the sponsors; it's the Begin Again team, it's the volunteers, it's my friends, it's Audrey's friends, there's so many people, and yeah, thank you, that's all we can say.